spotlights rake across the Grand Ole Opry curtains, dazzling the audience so completely that the real story almost slips past unseen. Backstage, in air that smells of hairspray and fretboard polish, contracts get whispered like prayer, and favors are weighed out with the precision of gold dust. For most of country music history, those secret ledgers have been kept almost entirely by men, and the currency has too often been the bodies, voices, and reputations of the women whose songs made Nashville rich. Tourists see only one city: neon marquees, butter yellow studios, museums stocked with rhinestone dresses. But Music City is actually two towns stitched together. One shines for cameras, the other hides in windowless writing rooms, closed-door mixers, and after-show buses where gatekeepers decide whose demo jumps the line and whose single stalls on a regional chart. For decades, that invisible town wrote an unspoken rulebook. Grateful women climbed, resistant women vanished. Tanya Tucker was only 13 when her thunderous voice hurled Delta Dawn onto the charts, yet behind the curtain a boardroom full of grown men debated how to market a child as a heartthrob. They rationed her allowance, dictated skirt length, even rotated so-called chaperones who blurred every healthy boundary. Fans saw a prodigy. Tanya felt like a commodity rolling along a conveyor belt. Years later, she joked during an encore that certain gentlemen once offered radio insurance in exchange for private dinners. The crowd laughed, missing the tremor beneath her punchline, because the punchline was the safest way to tell the truth. Long before country fully embraced electric guitars, Wanda Jackson straddled rockabilly and honky-tonk with a rasp sharp enough to slice marble. Elvis's managers loved the noise she made, but they loved the numbers a tighter dress could bring even more. Late-night calls urged deeper necklines in exchange for bigger billing. Wanda preyed on it, sketched stage outfits that balanced modesty and magnetism, and pushed back whenever suggestions veered from glamour into objectification. Her refusals cost radio spins, yet she chose a smaller crowd over a larger living billboard and slept sounder for it. Dolly Parton arrived with two priceless defenses: a songwriting catalog she controlled like blue-chip stock, and a wit that could turn predators into punchlines. When a label executive proposed a candlelit dinner in exchange for aggressive promotion, she smiled sweetly, offered to bring her husband and a tape recorder to capture any brilliant ideas, and watched the invitation evaporate. Retaliation followed. Showcase slots vanished, calls went unanswered, yet Dolly simply drove station to station in a Cadillac loaded with vinyl, hustling her own records until those same programmers pretended the slight had never happened. Tammy Wynette's tear-stained vibrato felt endless, but so did the fine print choking her finances. A trusted manager controlled tour routes, royalty statements, even prescription refills, funneling profits into shell accounts. When Tammy dared question missing dollars, he reminded her that the public liked its first lady of country docile. Lawyers could have fought back, but promoters loyal to the manager could also cancel a 40-city run with one phone call, so Tammy sang through migraines and wrote pain into timeless ballads the manager continued to monetize. Loretta Lynn, coal miner's daughter and natural storm cloud, believed fear should belong to the wrongdoer. After a disc jockey grabbed her backstage early in her rise, she slapped him so hard his headset flew. He blacklisted her across half a dozen stations, but mountain listeners flooded switchboards with requests until his playlist surrendered. Loretta mailed him an unsigned record in thanks, and spent the rest of her career writing songs that threw open taboo doors: birth control, deadbeat dads, blue-collar fatigue, subjects publicists begged her to skip. Kitty Wells cracked country's stained glass ceiling with "It Wasn't God Who Made Honky Tonk Angels," daring to answer Hank Thompson's Blame Game anthem. Male programmers deemed her lyric immoral and banned it sight unseen, inadvertently turning controversy into rocket fuel. Sales exploded. Yet behind conference doors, Kitty still needed her husband's signature on contracts because banks refused to lend to female entertainers outright. Success illuminated a ceiling, it did not immediately remove it. Patsy Cline's voice could split granite, yet producers lectured her on softening her phrasing to sound ladylike. Makeup departments layered foundation over scar tissue from a near-fatal car crash so ticket buyers wouldn't sense vulnerability, and one executive told her to lose weight or lose her slot on a major tour. Patsy glared, sang "crazy" into the microphone like it was an exposed nerve, and rewrote the definition of commercial appeal in 3 aching minutes. Barbara Mandrell carried a spotless public image and a Bible-quoting fan base, but insiders remember sponsor retreats at cattle ranches where network deals were negotiated after dessert. Smiling compliance guaranteed primetime specials, polite resistance threatened budgets. Barbara learned to weaponize charm, thanking hosts with gifts instead of acquiescence, and leaving early for family obligations that may or may not have existed. Her secret was sugar-coated steel, the softest voice delivering the firmest no. Lynn Anderson's chart toppers with producer husband Glenn Sutton painted a portrait of Nashville royalty, but the canvas hid brushstrokes of control. Glenn chose her hairstyle, her gowns, even how loudly her microphone was set in the final mix, so his harmony would hover prominently. He rewrote stage banter on index cards taped to her dressing room mirror and clipped her songwriting share to guest status, even when she birthed the original melody. The day their marriage cracked, the label's enthusiasm evaporated as if powered by the same circuit breaker, teaching Lynn that in Nashville a broken romance could be wired directly to a career fuse box. She rebuilt anyway, proving there are second winds for voices brave enough to inhale. Connie Smith's soprano soared like church rafters, yet her debut contract limited which instruments could frame her voice, fearing fiddles sounded too rural for upward mobile markets. Executives even capped the number of minutes she could speak about faith during gospel festivals. Connie honored the paper while counting days until freedom, then re-emerged with full creative control and an album that outsold the committee-built records meant to contain her. Dottie West trusted easily, and managers mined that generosity like silver. They coaxed her into themed restaurants, souvenir boutiques, and ambitious tours financed with loans she guaranteed. When those ventures collapsed, creditors came after her home while the advisors skipped town. Reduced to pawning awards, Dottie insisted on driving herself to the Opry to save on a chauffeur, was late, and accepted a stranger's ride that ended in the crash which took her life. The metaphor was brutal, a star literally racing alone down a road money men refused to travel. Jeannie C. Riley detonated hypocrisy with Harper Valley PTA, but celebration quickly curdled. Powerful tour bookers suggested national television appearances came with gratitude clauses. Jeannie declined, and bookings evaporated like spilled bourbon. Trade magazines rebranded her temperamental, code for non-compliant. She bought a used pickup, hit county fairs instead, and laughed every time teachers in PTA jackets sang the chorus back like a rebellion anthem. June Carter Cash, cocooned by the Carter family's matriarchal prestige and married into outlaw royalty, might have seemed untouchable, yet predators smell opportunity through velvet. On early solo tours, she received mentorship offers laced with room key implications. June wielded humor like pepper spray, turning each advance into a punchline that left the perpetrator laughing at himself while she walked safely away. Still, the labor of constant vigilance carved invisible bruises. In late-night journal entries, she wrote that the stage felt like freedom, but the corridor back to her hotel room felt like a gauntlet lined with ghosts of every woman told to play nice. Her laughter was tactical, a dagger hidden in a bouquet. Linda Ronstadt's dream of border-crossing albums terrified executives who saw spreadsheets rather than culture. They predicted bilingual tracks would confuse truck stop jukebox patrons. Linda answered by financing a tour with personal savings, booking arenas in cities others ignored, and trust falling into the Latino communities that had championed her since day one. She sold out night after night, donated portions of merchandise proceeds to bilingual education, and returned with box office numbers that shut every skeptical mouth. The same suits who had muttered about swimsuit covers suddenly printed posters in 2 languages and called her a visionary. It was never vision, it was simply Linda refusing to erase half her own identity. Crystal Gale's hair flowed like a midnight river, an image producers adored, but her desire to bend toward blues scared them. Department store sponsors wanted ethereal ballads that kept shoppers dreamy. During sound check, she slipped 12-bar riffs into monitor mixes, letting bandmates follow until the groove felt undeniable. Tapes of those experiments piled in her suitcase, secret seeds for the career she'd plant once contract renegotiations finally widened the gate. When she did pivot, critics acted as if she had reinvented herself overnight. In truth, the blues had been simmering beneath braids for years. Barbara Fairchild arrived at her first session to find men shuffling papers and measuring her voice like a construction site. They wanted each song dropped a key to sound meeker. Barbara closed her eyes, hit the opening note in the original register, and watched glass rattle in the control room. Engineers sulked. She held the line. The single soared. Industry press praised her unexpected power, a backhanded compliment that implied men still owned the measuring stick. Barbara smiled politely, then refused to return until the session band learned to raise their own game rather than lower hers. Sylvia's 80s gloss looked effortless, but stylists fixated on marketable innocence. When she asked for co-writing credit, an executive smirked that fans preferred their sweetheart seen, not penned. The insult became rocket fuel. Sylvia self-released indie records, wrote every lyric, and discovered moderate sales with full freedom felt wealthier than platinum sold in partial chains. Jesse Coulter barreled through outlaw highways at Waylon Jennings' side, yet the subculture branded as renegade freedom still carried fine print for its queens. Booking agents swore the tour was a democracy, but whispers insisted that securing the Saturday Twilight slot meant proving you could keep the boys happy after curtain. Jesse answered with knife-sharp musicianship, triple-stack gospel chords that left lesser pickers blinking, and songwriting so lean no one dared cut her set for time. She hired her own all-female crew, a rolling fortress of sisters who traveled armed with contracts and pepper spray, and every night they turned up the amps just loud enough to drown out any comments about backstage visits. Independence, she would say later, never felt free. It felt like a mortgage, renegotiated daily in vigilance and resolve. Reba McEntire powered through smoky clubs collecting jokes about red-headed candy. Promoters invited her to poster meetings behind closed doors. She attended once, heard the subtext, and never returned. Instead, she built her own management company, eventually hiring and firing some of the same men who once snickered in those rooms. Tables, she proved, not only turn, sometimes they spin. Threading these 19 stories is a warped vinyl motif. Gatekeepers impose tolls quietly, then label the cost industry standard. The punishment for refusal is rarely a slammed door. It is a delayed radio ad, a last-minute budget cut, a rumor seeded just pungent enough to make sponsors hesitate. Because retaliation arrives as fog, women struggle to draw lines between coincidence and consequence, exactly how the system prefers it. Then came 2018. A celebrated Nashville publicist was accused of trading introductions for compromising favors. Young singers compared text threads and discovered identical scripts sent hours apart. Screenshots hit social media, traveling faster than any payola packet. Breakfast television pounced, labels issued cautious statements, and within a month, the publicist's name vanished from mastheads that once bragged about him. Veterans nodded knowingly. Dolly tweeted a lonely heart emoji. Everyone understood. Loretta phoned a drive time show, reminding listeners she once lost spins for slapping a DJ. Tanya strummed a weathered guitar on Instagram Live, hinting she still remembered plenty more names if anybody needed them. Change didn't sprint, but it had finally put on running shoes. Structural reform remains slow. Women occupy barely a tenth of mainstream country radio spins, and summer festivals tout balanced rosters that crumble under basic arithmetic. Still, cracks widen. Independent distributors let Sylvia drop feminist anthems at midnight to a global audience. TikTok catapults farm girls with pawn shop guitars onto late-night television, without a single A&R whisper. Connie Smith receives a Lifetime Grammy, validating the decades she spent waiting for permission she never actually needed. Nothing, however, refunds what was taken. Royalties siphoned, health traded, dignity mortgaged. Tammy Wynette's estate still unwinds spiderweb finances. Families point to Dottie West's fatal dash to the Opry every time a young singer drives herself because a new manager won't spring for a driver. Substance spirals claim others. Beer sponsorship up front, coke and jars of cannabis buried in wardrobe trunks, pills for nerves, heavier pills for shutting the lights off at dawn. Yet resilience amplifies too. Dolly's imagination library has shipped over 200 million books, turning money once dangled as leverage into literacy. Reba bought the ranch she worried poverty would steal, ensuring nobody can foreclose her origin story. Linda Ronstadt, her singing voice gone, writes essays that dismantle the very gatekeeping she once hurdled with high notes. Tanya teaches contract literacy between encore cheers. Still, progress can be measured in the quiet music of small victories. When Mickey Guyton strode across the outfield grass to sing the national anthem before a championship game in 2021, she carried the hopes of every woman told her pitch was a novelty. That single moment sent a tremor through publishing houses, where assistants folded the clip into pitch decks proving female voices sell tickets. In writing rooms, the tired joke, "Make it more guy-friendly," now meets raised eyebrows and deleted notes. Discord fan hubs replace promoter-built clubs, crowdsourcing accountability in real time. Graduate seminars dissect modern country lyrics, the way historians once parsed folk ballads, mapping each songwriter's hidden labor. Spotify playlists titled "She Played First" rack up millions of streams, funneling micro-royalties straight to artists old rotation systems would have buried. Even truck stop gift shops now stock guitar-shaped mugs designed by Latina artisans funding their own EPs. None of this erases decades of debt, but each royalty statement, syllabus footnote, and sold-out mini-tour is a receipt pinned to the corkboard of change. It is proof that the ledger is finally being audited. Culture bends like a steel guitar slide, slow at first, then suddenly soaring higher than anyone expected. For good measure, even the cityscape testifies. Gleaming label towers now share streets with indie co-ops where engineers of every gender trade stems without patriarchal permission. Murals of Kitty, Patsy, and Loretta stare down at coffee houses where newcomers sing lyrics that name exploitation plainly. The Opry's ancient wooden circle glows under new boots, carrying ghosts who once smiled through clenched teeth and rookies who refuse to. If you've ever belted Jolene in traffic or wept to Crazy by a kitchen radio, you've plugged directly into this struggle. Every chorus hides a spreadsheet, every modulation carries a negotiation. Some women escaped with surface scars, others were swallowed whole. But none stood entirely alone. They found sisterhood in dressing rooms, exchanged burner numbers under paper towels, and whispered which promoter's hand lingered too long. So when the next newcomer rockets skyward, remember Tanya's teenage gamble, Wanda's wardrobe tug-of-war, Dolly's joke shield, Patsy's granite roar, Barbara's sugar steel, and Reba's spinning table. Behind every platinum plaque on Music Row, a woman likely bartered autonomy the public never saw. Yet autonomy, like groundwater, keeps finding cracks. Each whispered story sprouts a fresh verse. Every leaked contract sparks a new demand for parody. Tonight, the Opry lights blaze again, but a veteran queen steps to the mic knowing the audience finally hears more than melody. They hear context. She sings with the slow, billowing confidence of someone who has paid in currencies no invoice could list. Among the church pew benches, a bright-eyed girl clutching a thrift store guitar realizes she can chase the dream without pawning her dignity. Change is a two-step. Tonight it hits the downbeat. Maybe tomorrow's deals will trade only talent for tickets, songs for smiles, applause for encores. Until that chorus arrives, keep listening, keep questioning, and keep every spotlight sweeping the shadows so the next generation of headline queens walks onto stages free of hidden tolls, ready to sing until the rafters shake, and the ledger finally balances in favor of the women whose truth built the soundtrack of a nation. For everyone, once and forever. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.